It's hour two of Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Hope you're having a great day today. And since it is the second hour of Budweiser's weekday sports beat, that can mean only one thing. Ready for rapid fire, Jesse?
I am ready. We spent a lot of time talking about QBs. I'm sure we're going to talk about QBs more, but there's also relevant topics to get to today.
There are many. And when I was doing the tease the last hour, I forgot about the Steve Angeli news out of Syracuse today. So we'll touch on that in a little bit as well. First, though, we have more Notre Dame football quarterback conversation. You look like you just saw something. Did you have something?
No, it's just another program announced their starter today.
Notre Dame, obviously this doesn't include Syracuse. Notre Dame is the only top 10 AP top 10 team in the nation that is yet to name a starting quarterback.
Interesting.
Enough. So we heard a lot from Marcus Freeman in the quarterback competition between Kenny Minchey and CJ Carr in hour one of the show. We talked to Mike Denbrock, Notre Dame's offensive coordinator, yesterday as well. He was asked if the two quarterbacks are going to still split their reps 50-50 until a starter is named.
I mean, advantage, disadvantage. I'm not sure about that part. You know what I mean? But yeah, it'll be kind of the same it's been. You know, we've had a long stretch here where we've been able to give each guy pretty close to the same amount of reps, and until the decision is final and we make it, that'll continue.
All right, so that will continue. You good with that, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, if we're in the true spirit of a competition and, no one knows yet, then of course, got to keep splitting it up day by day until that starter is announced. Because as soon as you give one guy, 52 reps and the other guy 48 reps, the media is immediately going to come knocking and say, hey, you gave CJ Carr more reps today.
More reps.
Does that mean he's a starter? What? There's always a sign, right? Like everything's, especially for me, I'm guilty of this 100%. Everything's a sign, right? Like I walk down the road and I see a penny on the ground. That's a sign. That means I need to do something special, right? Like that's kind of where I'm at.
In other words, you're superstitious. That's what.
Yeah, 100%.
I think I used to be more superstitious when I was younger, and just older I've gotten, the more that stuff has just gone out the window. I mean, again, I think it's completely fine. 50-50 reps. I mean, if you haven't made a decision, you can't give one more than the other because you're still trying to figure it out, obviously. So I've got no problem continuing to split the reps until they figure it out. But the thing is, as we said, tomorrow, based on what Marcus Freeman said, tomorrow begins specific Miami prep. And it just feels like with 12 days to go as of tomorrow, the closer you get, you've got to make that decision. One of them has to start, whoever the starter is, has to start getting, more reps than whoever the number two guy is going to be. But that also begs the question, how much longer can they go before they name a number one who starts getting the majority of the snaps?
One day. I think one more day is honestly where I'm at. I just did a little research.
Ooh.
A lot of teams are like, again, you can only compare yourself to the standard, and the standard is winning a national championship. Who's won the most recent national championship? Ohio State. They named their captains yesterday, and they named their starter today, right? So technically, if Notre Dame named their starter right now, they'd just be on pace with the standard. Notre Dame named their captains today. I hope that they follow suit and they name their starter tomorrow. Because again, I don't care who the starter is, and I don't care what it means. I just want the starter to be announced for the team's sake. I want the team to be in the best.
Named.
Yes, named.
Not announced. Because I think somebody brought, Scott mentioned the first, or Tommy, there's a difference between naming and announcing.
Correct.
Like, they can name it to the team, versus announcing it publicly, right?
Correct.
Just to clarify.
But the implications that it has on the team, I want them getting ready for, again, this is arguably one of their top 3 games this entire season. You have to start getting into game week mindset, preparation, and getting your young quarterback, whoever it is, mentally prepared to be a starter on the road in a big environment?
See, Werewolf says the team knows by now, so who cares? I mean, if it's really as close as everyone is saying, which by all accounts it is, based on things we've heard, things they've said publicly, the coaches, things they haven't said publicly, like it is a very close competition, and each one has his own strength. So I don't know that it's necessarily obvious to the team. I like the way it sounds. You could go with either guy and you'd have a really good quarterback. It's just the subtle differences between the two that are going to be the big difference. And to your point, like I agree with what you're saying. They can't go much longer until they at least internally name the starting quarterback. So whether it's a 60-40 split or, 70-30 or whatever, they have to start preparing whoever is going to be the starter as the starter and wrap the main part of the game plan around him. And if there is a package for the other guy, that's fine. Whatever situations they deem he would be best suited for, because other people have talked about, Wimbush and Book and, like these different guys where you have seen two different guys. There's a difference, going back to what we were talking about in the first hour of the show, there's a difference between having a package like Tyler Buckner had when Jack Cohn was the starting quarterback and going with just a full splitting reps between both guys. I think there's a big difference between that.
Two things. If the team knows it is going to get leaked, someone's going to tell a friend who's going to tell a cousin, who's going to tell their mom, who's going to tell their sister.
Well, I mean, there were already
it's all over the place.
But they turned out not to, necessarily. Maybe the leaks are what pumped the brakes on actually naming the starting quarterback.
And if the team knows, and Marcus Freeman's a liar because he got up there Sunday and said a decision hasn't been made.
But every coach will. I think liar might be a little bit strong. He's at least protected the information, in the right way to his benefit, right? Because it's to his team's benefit at this point. Because like you were saying earlier, there's no film on either way. Like Notre Dame is one of the few teams that was willing to have their spring game broadcast nationally. There were the Nebraskas and LSUs and USCs of the world who were afraid to do that, but Marcus Freeman and the Irish weren't afraid to put their spring game on TV. So people have at least been able to see a little bit from a few months back the differences between Kenny Minchey and CJ Carr.
I think people are getting confused like I care. I don't care. You're just starting to tread in water where things can start to go south quickly.
Right.
That's all I'm afraid of.
And to clarify, because there was a question that came up yesterday when Mike Denbrock was up there, to clarify, both of the quarterbacks had reps as the number one quarterback during the scrimmage yesterday. Because as Mike Denbrock said, I don't have the cut right here, but as Mike Denbrock said, it was offense against defense. So whoever you put on the field was essentially the number one guy. They were mixing and matching, so they were both taking number one reps out there. There wasn't one guy getting one rep, number one reps, one guy getting number twos. They were both getting number one reps during the scrimmage yesterday because it was a live scrimmage and the Jersey scrimmage. I am Tenzin. I'm the son of Ang. Says too much quarterback talk of the big show today. We need more defensive talk. We're going to slip some of that in here in just a minute. Jesse?
I don't want to – I know we got to keep moving, but just humor me here for a second. Humor me.
You're going to grind this thing to a halt here? What are you going to do?
If Brian Kelly were the head coach right now and this is the exact same situation, would we be having the same dialogue right now? Just yes or no?
And would we be having the same dialogue as
yes. Like, would there be as much forgiveness?
We had a lot of dialogue. So, yeah, like, I think we would be much more impatient with Brian Kelly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's all I wanted.
I mean, that's noteworthy as well, because this is the first time Marcus Freeman has really had to go through this in his career. This is the first, because, again, you can go back to Buckner and Pine in year one, but at the day, they declared Buckner the starter within a week of camp. Like that's most of these competitions, they've named the starter relatively quickly. And it just kind of magnifies the fact that this is a true quarterback competition. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Steve Angeli has been named the starting quarterback at Syracuse.
It's a massive egg on my face, everyone. And I'll be the first to say, hey, hand up right here. This guy said he couldn't make it to a MAC. This guy said that he should stick to a MAC. I said Power 5 was never an option. And if he did make it to a Power 5, there's no way he'd be a starter. I'll eat it all. I'll eat all of my words. I'll man up and be the first one to admit I was wrong. I hope that this means something good for Steve Angeli. I hope that this, gives him the opportunity that I think he deserves. But most importantly, I think that this should reassure Notre Dame fans, because if they got rid of a guy who could be a Power 5 starter in the Big Ten, it should tell you how they feel about CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey.
I almost forgot to include this on the rundown today, and then I remembered with you being in here with me for Rapid Fire that we had to make sure, and Daniel in the YouTube chat giving you props for the accountability. Good on you. And what it really means now is, when are you going to pay this bet to Vince and I? You were in town for a week last week. I noticed you never offered, hey, Dad, would you like maybe some Chipotle, or what? Could I order you something? Not once in the week that you were in town did anything like that come up on the bet, because the bet was you would owe both Vince and I dinner if Angeli ended up being the starting quarterback. And here he is. Congratulations to Steve Angeli. So good on him. He's made his way. But this also shows just how good this quarterback room is at Notre Dame. The fact that Steve Angeli went to another Power 4 program, beat out a guy who transferred from LSU, who was making some good NIL money of his own to go from LSU to Syracuse, and ended up winning the job. So I think that it's great for Steve Angeli, but it's also great because it shows just how good the two quarterbacks who are still here at Notre Dame really are.
Listen, I just got my IRS money finally. If you and Vince are, getting hungry and want to use the thing is these are type of situations where you should really redeem it when it matters. You shouldn't just use it for any old situation. You should be craving a pizza. Maybe you've had a bad week of work. Maybe Notre Dame let you down and you just want a nice, big old greasy pizza. Maybe Vince got yelled at by the wife, forgot to get dinner. And it's like, You know what? Jesse still owes me a quick one. Maybe I can call him and we can, you know what I mean? Like, don't just use it to use it. Make it situational.
Okay. All right.
But no, I'm good for it. At any point you call, I'm there. You guys just let me know.
Here's a service that I need. Like, they have DoorDash. What they need is Airline Gate Dash. So when I land in Dallas, I don't have to go looking for barbecue when I land at the airport in Dallas when I'm on my way to Miami next week. Someone walks up to me with Gate Dash and hands me my barbecue. I think that maybe that's what you need to figure out as like how you can accomplish that, to have barbecue hand delivered to me once I arrive.
Naomi was just in Kansas City, so having Kansas City Joe's probably would have been the answer in this scenario, but I didn't even get any of it. So
yeah, fair enough. So Notre Dame named their 6 captains today: Adon Schuler, Billy Schrouth, Will Pauling, Drake Bowen, Emil Wagner, Donovan Heinisch. What do you think? Any surprises in these captains announced today?
So I was trying to do some recollection. I want to say, and I always tell people to write these down, but I'm pretty sure I was good on Adon Schuler. I was good on Billy Schrouth. I was good on Drake Bowen. I was good on Emil Wagner. And I want to say I was even good on Donovan Heinisch as kind of like a wild card. I might have to go rewatch the show. Will Pauling surprises me, but after hearing about his work ethic and kind of who he is as a man, I'm no longer surprised about it. Yeah. I would say my only letdown is I wanted the offensive skill guy to be homegrown. I didn't want it to be, I don't have a problem with it being Will Pauling, but I wanted it to be maybe Jeremiah Love or Jaden Greathouse or a career Notre Dame guy. That was maybe my only gripe.
But you do hear great things about Will Pauling and the leadership and, like what he did at Wisconsin and, the work ethic that he's got and everything, as you said, I'm not surprised. Magnetic therapy bracelets in the YouTube chat says, why wasn't Love selected captain? Well, the team voted, and these are the guys the team voted for. So you can't fault the team for who they voted for. These are who they voted for. You can only vote for so many guys. And, that's just the way it goes. Not everybody can end up being a captain. Vince and I did make our final picks last week, and I did not. The only two on this list I didn't have were Wagner and Heinisch. I had the other four guys, Schuler, Schrouth, Pauling, Bowen, as we kind of went through some other guys. Felt like Greathouse had an opportunity. I did have Jeremiah Love as one of my picks. He didn't.
Don't you have to self-nominate and then the team votes after the self-nomination?
Yeah, you get up in front of the team, you self-nominate, you tell people why you want to be a captain.
I don't think Love self-nominated himself.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out. Maybe he didn't. Irish Gordian Knott says, I need to message him and he could legitimately walk me through how to accomplish my barbecue at the gate mission when I get to Dallas. So thank you very much for that. Carlos says, you get me the terminal and I'll get you some good Texas barbecue. I will. I know it's American Airlines. I don't know where, which gate I'll be coming into, Carlos, but if you were there, we will meet up and we will make that happen. I think I have an hour and a half layover in between if everything's on time.
I like to hear that. The last time I was in the Dallas airport, I was able to find some you know what? People are going to make some jokes, but I was able to find some Cowboys gear at a nice discount.
All right. I want to make sure and get this Big Ten proposal in before we talk some more Notre Dame stuff, Jesse, because I don't want to run out of time and not have time to talk about the idiocy of this whole thing. First, a couple super chats in the YouTube. Thank you very much, Daniel. He says, for one of Vince's kids' meals, he sends us a little cash for that. And Swangdong says he's wearing Cowboys gear in his YouTube picture. Really classy, Swangdong. Then Irish Gordy Knott says, I don't know why, but it would be cool if Sean was smoking a stogie during the breaks. I think that's because I forgot to put the cover screen up when I was sitting here. I got a chuckle out of that, and then I looked and I was like, oh, I'm still on screen. I better put the cover page up. Okay, so we need to talk about the Big Ten's latest college football playoff expansion proposal. Commissioner Tony Petitti has floated another idea out there of growing the field to either 24 or 28 teams. Here are some of the details for the 28 team proposed for. It's not an official proposal yet, but they would eliminate conference championship games. Big Ten and SEC would each get 7 auto bids. ACC, Big 12 each get 5 auto bids. There would be 2 auto bids for group of 6 teams, the 2 best group of 6 teams. That would leave 2 at-large bids, like where Notre Dame would slot in. And there would also be 20 on-campus playoff games. The playoff committee would seed the field and pick the at-large teams. That's a 28-team proposal by the Big Ten. Does any of this appeal to you on any level?
The only thing that appeals to me is having more on-campus playoff games. The rest of it, you can do what I'm about to do to this Kyle Tucker card. You can light it on fire.
You're that happy with him right now, huh?
Something's got to happen. I need like a sacrificial cleansing or something. I just need to light it on fire, and hopefully his season will turn around. But no, to be honest with you, it's the thing is it's the same format. It just amplifies because the ratio stays the same. The Big Ten and the SEC want half the field basically, and that's no matter what the format is. So they keep basically saying, well, let's just keep adding more teams, and then we'll keep maybe getting our ratio up where we get 50%. Yeah, we'll get 50% of the field, and that's more money for the Big Ten and the SEC because that's more, highly anticipated viewers for a lot of these games. I'm going to be honest with you. I would I would rather trend to less teams than I would more teams. It's all fat at the end of the day that can be trimmed off because in college football, you can't tell me once you get outside the top 8 or 10, we all know what the best teams in the country are, right? Like it's just excess games at that point that you're just playing to generate more revenue. In a perfect world, there'd be an 8-team playoff, no first round buys. You play 8 games and then you play till you get down to a championship, and that's it. That's just my opinion on it. I think the more you add, you're not really worried about quality of football. You're worried about revenue of football at that point.
Tony Petitti and the Big Ten just need to speak when spoken to at this point. That's what it comes down to. It's just like, stop talking, because this is just ridiculousness. Now, as you expand the playoff, you should not need more guaranteed spots in the playoff. You shouldn't get more auto bids if you're going to expand it. It should actually be the other way around because
Correct.
You've expanded it. You're proposing to expand it to the point of ridiculousness at this point. You should not get 7 auto bids if the field is going to be 28. If anything, you should just say you get 2. Each conference gets 2 auto bids. Everything else is at large after that. Like, you shouldn't need to keep doing this. But again, this goes back to, like he's talking about getting rid of the conference championship games. Do you know why he's willing to get rid of the conference championship games? It's the same thing that he wants with his 16-team, expanded playoff field that he's been talking about. He wants to stage the play-in games. And by staging the play-in games, he's giving content to his TV partners. And we all know that TV drives so much of this to begin with. That's like, everything comes back to that for Tony Petitti in the Big Ten. He's trying to make his TV partners happy and get more revenue for his conference at the same time, because more games on TV and more home playoff games, that's more money for everybody, right? But you shouldn't need the auto bids. But again, he can't have the play-in games if he's not getting automatic bids once those games are played. And he sees these things tied together. That's why he keeps pushing this garbage. And, like to your point about watering it down. So again, ACC and the Big 12 would get 5 auto bids out of this thing if it ever happened. The number 5 team in the ACC last year, Louisville, 9-4. That's obviously after a bowl game. Number 5 team in the Big 12, Baylor, 8-5. Number 7 team in the Big 10, Michigan and Minnesota tied for 7th. They were both 8-5. Texas A&M in the SEC, 7th place team, 8-5. Are those the kind of teams that we want in a playoff? Do we want 9, do we want 4 and 5 loss teams in the college football playoff? That's not what it's supposed to be about. It's just past the point of ridiculousness. But Tony Petitti only wants to serve himself and the Big Ten, the Big Ten's constituents. That's what all of this is about, is trying to serve him and his TV partners. So it's like, yeah, more on-campus playoff games would be cool, but we don't need to swell the college football playoff to 28 teams to get to that. I think it's ridiculous.
I mean, let's look at the first round games of even this most recent playoff. Ohio State beat Tennessee 42-17. Texas beat Clemson 38-24. Penn State beat SMU 38-10. Notre Dame was basically beating IU 27-3, and IU, got those last kind of touchdowns in when it really didn't matter. Are we really saying, outside of just, it was awesome, Notre Dame got to play on campus and host that playoff game, but outside of that, what did those first round of games really provide? It was just the trimming of the fat. So the more teams you add, we're talking about potentially seeing like 50-10 type games, or 40-3 type games. We all know what the result is going to be 19 out of 20 times.
Correct. John getting in a little bit late. We just talked about Steve Angeli starting for Syracuse. Congratulations to him as he becomes is named the Syracuse starting quarterback today. Notre Dame still waiting, trying to decide who their starting quarterback is going to be. Donald says he just joined. What did Jesse say about Angeli being QB1 at Syracuse? He said he ate his words because he knows that he was wrong. Capital W. Connor Grant, does NIL factor into the quarterback decision? Is Carr making more than Kenny? No, NIL does not factor into the quarterback decision. They're both making good NIL money. One might be making more than the other one, but that's not coming out direct. That's not coming out of Notre Dame's pockets, what they're making in NIL. That is for, collectives and like the sponsors and everything else. So that is not a factor in who ends up being the starting quarterback. It is all about what happens on the field, because those guys are going to make their money regardless if they're like, once they have an NIL deal, they're making that money whether they're number 1 or number 5 on the depth chart. So, they're on the roster. So that has nothing to do with it. So we talked with Fighting Irish cornerback Christian Gray recently. He was asked if he's ever gone back and watched film of the decisive play against Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, which happened, of course, at the end of last year's national championship game, and if there's anything he could have done differently. Here is Christian Gray's answer to that.
I do watch over it. I watch over some messed up tape. I go over it with just by myself sometimes. And I watched that play. I definitely would have said that I should have just really not let him get on my toes. He's closed space as far as he could. I was just trying to protect my leverage, and all I could definitely say is that I should just open up and turn as quick as possible as I could. So that's why I only know from there on. So yeah.
Is it a big motivator for you? Using that, watching it like that?
Oh yeah, it's a big motivator for sure. I'll definitely say that. But then I also say it's not the end of the world for your life. You know what I mean? I know it was a big game. It was a big emotional for everybody and everything. And all I can say, to myself, I had a little problem with it, of course. But I definitely say it's a huge motivator. To be better, strive for better, do something for better. You know what I mean? And so I definitely say that play just told me what this game is. You know what I mean? It's just one play, reload, make yourself better, keep going, keep working hard, and then you'll be better. So yeah.
Jesse, that response from Christian Gray about the Jeremiah Smith play from the national championship game is blank.
I would say pretty typical, to be honest with you. It didn't feel like he said too much or too little. I think that you like to hear the mindset of, it's just one play, but kind of hearing him talk about it, to me, it sounds like there really was nothing more that he could have done in that play, right? You were just going against one of the best wide receivers in the country. And sometimes, great players make great plays, unfortunately, right? But he had to be kind of on the receiving end of that. So rather than dwell on it, I think it's a bigger opportunity for growth, and something that you can kind of always come back to of, this was the biggest moment probably to date in my career. So, nothing at this point should be able to break him, I think is really what you can take away from it, because, he it's not even that he made a mistake, there's, again, the better player, I think, made a great play in that situation.
Yeah. And they designed something specifically, to see if they could get what they wanted, and they got it. I agree with what Beefeater ND08 says in the YouTube chat. That is what character sounds like. He owned it, and, he knows that it was a mistake, but every play, or every game, no one plays a perfect game. Tom Brady threw a lot of interceptions in his career for every championship that he won, like JJ Watt, tons of sacks in his career, but there were also plenty of other plays that he didn't make. Name your player. And if you're a cornerback, you've got to have a short memory. And I like how he didn't shy away from it. He talked, even about the fact that there was a little bit of controversy afterwards, and, things happened afterwards, but, he sat there, he owned up to it. And I think it's interesting when you think about it. Christian Gray was 19 years old when that play happened. Like, think about that. 19 years old, that kind of spotlight, and, like Jeremiah Smith, for that matter, was probably 18 when it happened. So, like, you're talking about a couple of, really young guys who were both very talented and, still with so much in front of them and so much upside as well. Because I always go back to, okay, that play might have gone against Christian Gray, but he still made probably the two biggest interceptions of the season for Notre Dame. Definitely in the Orange Bowl in the Penn State game. Not an easy play that he made on that diving interception on Drew Aller to set up the game-winning field goal. And then against USC as well with the pick six and the pivot that he made to stay on his feet and take it back the other way. Arguably the two biggest, plays that they made. Josh says, where was the safety help on that? Well, it was up at the line of scrimmage because they were blitzing. They were all out blitzing on that play. And, let's be honest, as great as Al Golden was, and he won the Frank Broyles Award last year, eerily similar to some extent to the double safety blitz that he made at the end of the Ohio State game in the regular season in game one of Marcus Freeman's tenure as well. So I wanted to get in a couple comments from Chris Ash, Notre Dame's defensive coordinator, before we wrap up. We will get at least one of them, and I think we've got time for a couple of them. One of the hot topics surrounding Ash as he comes into Notre Dame is where he's going to be on game day. Will he coach from the press box or down on the field? Well, he answered that question yesterday.
I'm going to be downstairs. There's really no particular reason. It's just when I look at the makeup of the staff and all that, I just think it's best for me to be down on the sideline. I've done both. I've been in the box. I've been on the sideline. Been more on the sideline here recently. But really, it's about what I think is best for the staff and the players.
All right, so he's going to be down on the field. Does it really matter, Jess?
Yes, it does matter.
Ooh, okay. So where would you rather? I mean,
he made the right decision.
You think down on the field is the place to be?
Yes.
Okay.
You're, in my opinion, and I think that this is on. I think this is honestly different per coordinator. I'd rather have my OC up in the box, and I'd rather have my DC down on the field. I think defensive coordinators need to be in the trenches with their players. They need to understand what's going on. And then I think more so defensively, you're making more changes based off of what you see and the feedback you get from your players coming off the field. You don't need to be communicating all that through headsets, through players, through coordinators. Everyone gets in a huddle on the sideline. You circle around. We get a board out. We start talking about what we're seeing, what adjustments we need to make, that sort of stuff. I just think that communication process and getting a result in game is so much easier when you're on the field on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay. I like it. Come over, get the immediate feedback. You got the boss right there.
Everyone's communicating. You're not, again, It's not headsets. Everyone's face to face. Everyone's kind of, again, we're just hashing out what we're seeing. What are we going to do to fix it? That sort of situation. When you start talking, it's like, well, who's talking? Are you sure this is what you're seeing? Like, I just think you can gauge everything that's going on so much easier when you're on the sidelines.
Yeah, and I mean, you can have whoever you want up in the press box if like looking at specific things formation-wise and all those different things who can communicate different things to you. But I agree. I think the direct level of communication on the sideline is generally the best way to go. So good answer. Good response. I like it. So Chris Ash is going to be on the sideline on game day. He was also asked about the depth of his defense and how it compares to some other places that he has coached.
To be honest with you, the only place that probably would be comparable was when I went to Ohio State in 2014. There were a lot of really good players there, very similar to this situation here. People can say a lot of things about me, but I'm not dumb. If I was going to take this job, it was because we had some pretty good players, and we do.
I feel like he was throwing some shade at you there with that comment, Jesse.
I love that comment. I wouldn't, seriously, what guy wants to walk into a crappy defensive coordinator position, especially knowing kind of what they were just able to accomplish in the prior years, right? So
right. And I mean, it's it's pretty scary when you look at this, because we're going to hear some more comments from Chris Ash and Mike Denbrock on tomorrow's show about some different topics. We're obviously very quarterback heavy, very quarterback focused today for good reason, because of the fact that, they haven't named a starter yet. And people are like, what are they going to do? And all that different stuff. But they were talking about Dallas Golden yesterday and Mark Zachary yesterday and all these young guys and the kind of depth that they give, like the safeties, they're still sorting through who's going to be the safety to play next to a Don Schuler. And both Marcus Freeman and Chris Ash spoke, pretty glowingly about those four safeties who, not named a Don Schuler, who we're going to see this season. And so many of them are young guys. There is just so much depth on this team. And that secondary is just going to be a beast this year. And I think that is part of what, like you were going back when we were talking about Miami earlier and like how they're going to, hang with Miami. I think it is going to be a real challenge for Carson Beck on August 31st when they go up against this Notre Dame secondary.
Couple thoughts. First thought, agree. But a guy that I follow that is heavy into analytics and someone's opinion that I respect very, very much has Miami as the most, I don't even know why I'm trying to say it like this. It is the highest rated offense in his analytics, more so than Alabama, more so than Ohio State, Texas. He has Miami as the top offense in the country. I'm sure Carson Beck plays into that, but we won't know until we know. I think Miami's going to have a lot of firepower. I think Notre Dame's defense is going to have a lot of firepower. But to kind of wrap this thing up, and I want everyone to listen real close here. Marcus Freeman has created so much depth here. That's the reason why Notre Dame has turned the corner. They're not just great at the ones anymore. They're great 1 through 2 and potentially all the way 1 through 3. So listen loud and clear here. At the end of the day, I have no other choice but to listen and respect what Coach Marcus Freeman does and decides. If he wants to decide now, if he wants to decide it's Kenny Minchey, if he wants to decide it's CJ Carr, I don't care. He's proven to himself. He has taken this program to higher places in the last 30 years, 40 years than any other coach. So
you're giving him the benefit of the doubt now, because that didn't seem like what you were doing in the first hour of the show.
I have no choice. I have no choice. When has he proved me wrong?
Okay. All right.
I just want people to understand the repercussions that can come from it. That's
okay.
it.
All right. Do you think when we saddle up tomorrow, are we going to know who the starting quarterback is?
Yes.
You think we will?
By the time this show starts tomorrow, you and Vince will be talking about who the starting quarterback is. Tomorrow starts Miami week. We'll know who the quarterback is.
Tommy is telling you that you're going back on what you were talking about earlier. All right, we're going to wrap it up with that. Jesse Stiers, Sean Stiers, thanks for being here. Appreciate you as always. Those who watch in the YouTube chat, of course, those who listen either live or in podcast form. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.
Go Irish.